Get results using the safe, all-natural alternative, Anorex.
This is CNN.
Tonight on Wolf Blitzer Reports, military options. President Bush visits the Pentagon and warns this will be a different kind of war.
In the past, there have been, beaches to storm, islands to conquer.
As the Pentagon prepares call-up orders for reservists, what else do military planners have in mind? The main target of U.S. wrath is increasingly clear: the Al-Qaeda terror network.
All roads lead to the leader of that organization, Osama bin Laden, and his location in Afghanistan.
The war is already being waged on the diplomatic front. As the U.S. seeks to build a broad coalition against terror, Pakistani officials have passed on a warning to Afghanistan's Taliban rulers. But others have tried to get tough with Afghanistan and failed. We'll hear from our correspondents at the White House, the Pentagon, and the State Department, and in Islamabad and Moscow. And I'll speak with retired Air Force General George Harrison as America weighs its military options. Good evening. I'm Wolf Blitzer reporting tonight from Washington. We'll look at America's military options in just a moment. But first, here are the latest developments in America's new war. U.S. stock markets reopened today, the first day since the attacks, seeing significant drops. The Dow was down 684 points, the largest single day point loss ever. The Nasdaq was down 115 points. Airlines may be hardest hit. U.S. Airways is laying off 11,000 people, reducing its capacity 23%. American and Northwest Airlines are both expected to announce layoffs later this week. Continental has already said it will lay off 12,000 people. Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill tried to put a positive spin on the day's events.
I think that's right. You have to always remember when you're looking at markets, for every seller there's a buyer, and for every buyer there's a seller. My guess is when we look a year down the road, the people who bought today are going to be the happy people. The people who sold will be sorry they did it.
Stripes and bright stars.
And the national pastime returned to the field with 6 National League games tonight, including the Mets and the Pirates. The rest of the teams play tomorrow. Meanwhile, rhetoric at the White House is heating up, with President Bush using some of the most harsh language yet in discussing Osama bin Laden. CNN senior White House correspondent John King is live now with details. John, a show of solidarity by the president and his military brass today.
That is right, Wolf. The president traveled across the Potomac River to the still damaged Pentagon for an update on military preparedness efforts. This on a day of urgent meetings and increasingly harsh rhetoric for the president during a discussion with the Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and others at the Pentagon about the impending call-up of members of the National Guard and other military reservists. The president took a few questions from reporters. He called this action barbaric, referred to the hijackers slicing the throats of some of those aboard some of the hijacked flights, and Mr. Bush's rhetoric turned especially tough when he zeroed in on the prime suspect.
Osama bin Laden is just one person. He is representative of networks of people who absolutely have made their cause to defeat the freedoms that we understand, and we will not allow him to do so.
You want bin Laden dead?
I want him held. I want justice. And there's an old poster out west, as I recall, that said "Wanted, dead or alive."
Now, Mr. Bush shook some hands in the hallways of the Pentagon, an effort there to try to boost morale as the military planning continues. Senior administration officials telling CNN already underway are efforts by the administration through cyber technology, through cooperation with other governments to try to disrupt the financial support of Mr. bin Laden's organization. As for any military operation, most officials here saying they do not believe anything is imminent, but they also say the president just now beginning to narrow his options and have discussions, one called it modest debates, with other senior administration officials. Wolf.
Well, you say nothing is imminent, nothing appears to be imminent, John. What are you hearing about timing for at least the start of what the American public would see as military action?
very careful here at the White House, and I believe over at the Pentagon just as much so as well, to not talk about any specifics at all. But administration officials do note the Pakistani government today gave the Taliban 3 days to turn over Osama bin Laden or face military attacks. Senior officials saying obviously the cooperation of Pakistan is critical here, so they do not believe they would do anything in that 3-day window unless, as one official told me, it was irresistible, meaning Mr. bin Laden suddenly came out of hiding and was easy to get. No one expects that to happen. Also, the French President Jacques Chirac due here tomorrow. The British Prime Minister Tony Blair due here on Thursday. U.S. officials say the president wants to have face-to-face conversations with those key allies, other consultations with NATO and moderate Arab states as well. So no one believing this is imminent. At the same time, they also say if it were imminent, they wouldn't tell us.
John King at the White House, thank you very much. And as the Bush administration moves forward with its war on terrorism, the Pentagon is preparing to help carry out any plan that is approved. Let's go live to the Pentagon and CNN military affairs correspondent Jamie McIntyre. Everyone seems to say, Jamie, this is going to be a different kind of war. Is there any evidence on the ground over at the Pentagon where you are that they're setting the stage for this different kind of war?
Well, Wolf, as you said, while war planners are busy drawing up plans for possible strikes, they are not making many plans for the press to cover the war. This is a war in which they hope, if all goes right, the battles will be fought before you see anything about them on television. Pentagon sources tell CNN that this new war against terrorism will be fought with unprecedented secrecy and heavy press restrictions. Pentagon sources say that planning for possible military action has been highly compartmentalized to ensure that the fewest number of people have access to classified war plans. And according to Pentagon officials close to the process, the Bush administration has decided to clamp down on even routine information, such as how many ships have been moved to where. You may recall during the build-up to the Persian Gulf War that kind of information was readily available, so-called routine information. Even that has been cut out. If you go to the websites where the ships usually post where they are, you'll see that they have not been updated since September 10th, the day before the strikes took place. And President Bush, during his visit to the Pentagon, underscored that today.
I want to make it clear to the American people that that this administration will not talk about any plans we may or may not have. We will not jeopardize in any way, shape, or form anybody who wears the uniform of the United States.
Now, as for what the Pentagon is planning, sources say that there are both high-end and low-end options that are being drawn up. High-end would be options against countries or nation-states that support terrorism or harbor terrorists. Those would be things like airstrikes. And then the low-end options would be aimed against individuals or terrorist leaders, such as Osama bin Laden. That might involve a special forces mission. But the president will be given a long menu of options, and what he will approve is a closely guarded secret. Wolf?
Jamie, of course, as I remember during my days covering the Pentagon during the Gulf War, walking around the physical complex of the Pentagon was pretty easy, very open, as you well know. Any plans to restrict movement around the Pentagon?
Well, so far, reporters still have full access inside the Pentagon, where, except for the parts, obviously, that were damaged in the terrorist attack. But as a security measure, the Pentagon is closing the VIP parking lots that were right next to the building. Those VIPs will be moved down into lower lots. Everything is getting harder for people here at the Pentagon. They've lost about 3,000 parking spaces taken up by the recovery effort. Lots of people are being told they're going to have to take the subway to work. And the daycare center that was inaugurated with great fanfare some years ago as a convenience for Pentagon workers, it's been closed because the separate facility in front of the Pentagon is seen as just too inviting a target for terrorist attack. Cool.
Jamie McIntyre at the Pentagon, thank you very much. Meanwhile, the government of Pakistan is taking a hard line toward Taliban officials demanding they turn over Osama bin Laden. CNN senior Asia correspondent Mike Chenoy joins us now live from Islamabad in Pakistan with details. First of all, Mike, what are you hearing about the meetings that the Pakistani delegation is having with the Taliban in Afghanistan?
Hello, Wolf. Well, it's Tuesday morning here in Islamabad and next door in Afghanistan, and the high-level Pakistani delegation is getting ready for a second day of meetings with Taliban officials. The Taliban having called together, reportedly, several of Afghanistan's leading mullahs to debate how to respond to what's being described as an ultimatum.
Amid heightened security and growing tension at home, Pakistan's government waited for news of its last-ditch effort to avoid war. In the southern Afghan city of Kandahar, a team from Pakistan's military intelligence service delivered a blunt message to the Taliban: hand over Osama bin Laden and his associates or face the consequences.
We hope that the government of Afghanistan will act with responsibility in the terribly grave situation raised by these horrendous terrorist attacks.
If anyone can influence the Taliban, it's the ISI, Pakistani military intelligence, which played a key role during Afghanistan's civil war in helping the Taliban seize and hold power. Now, though, as President Pervez Musharraf moves to ally his government with Washington, officials here are unclear whether the Taliban will listen to them.
The assumption that Pakistan is in a position to exercise complete influence is flawed in our opinion. We have constantly pointed out to our friends that we have diplomatic relations, but that doesn't necessarily translate into great influence.
Meanwhile, the government has already responded to one U.S. request, closing its borders with Afghanistan, keeping growing numbers of refugees at bay, and halting shipments of everything but food. The government's stance has stirred sharp opposition in some quarters here, especially from Islamic fundamentalists, many of whom have close links with the Taliban. Demonstrations against President Musharraf have broken out in several cities. There are fears things could get worse.
It could be pretty destabilizing. It will begin in the northern areas, between the border areas of Balochistan and the frontier. And if the conflict is long drawn out, it will spill over into the streets of Lahore and Karachi and the urban areas.
In fact, a group of Islamic fundamentalists called the Afghan Defense Committee has announced plans for a nationwide strike and protest demonstrations on the 21st of September, that's this Friday, to protest Pakistan's moves to ally itself with the United States. Meanwhile, the latest indications we're getting from Kandahar are that Pakistani officials are deeply frustrated by the Taliban's so far intransigent attitude in response to the demands that the Pakistani team has been conveying. Wolf?
Mike, as you know, U.S. relations with Pakistan have been severely strained for about a decade. Where does all this leave the U.S. government's relationship with the government of Pakistan?
Well, there have been a great many issues, notably Pakistan's nuclear program, which led the U.S. to impose sanctions, Pakistan's close ties with the Taliban, and also the fact that this is a military government that took power in a coup d'etat 2 years ago. Pakistani and American officials are now talking about what Pakistan hopes will come out of it, which will be an easing of sanctions and a resumption of economic aid to reverse this country's terrible economic decline. There are some who hope that if this plays out well, that General Musharraf will be able, the president of Pakistan will be able to bring some of the Islamic radicals, the fundamentalists, under control and thus help address some of the concerns that have led to the deterioration in U.S.-Pakistani relations and what appeared to be an emerging American tilt towards India in the past year or two. Wolf?
Mike Chenoy in Islamabad, thank you very much. After 10 years spent fighting in Afghanistan, Russia pulled out in defeat. What are the lessons Russia learned that the United States should consider as it contemplates action against Afghanistan's ruling Taliban? CNN Moscow Bureau Chief Jill Doherty reports.
Here, more than 20 years ago, in the treacherous mountains of Afghanistan, Leo Karolkov fought a war like no other. His assignment was to train Soviet Special Operations Commandos, similar to America's Delta Force.
Modern weapons, rockets, laser-guided missiles, they're useless against these mountains.
Leo was there when Soviet troops moved into Afghanistan, and he was there when they left, after a decade of fighting and 15,000 dead.
I feel sorry for the people who are going to be thrown into those deserted mountainous regions where the enemy knows every single rock, every cave. No maps, no computer training can prepare you for it.
As for finding Osama bin Laden, Korolkov says there are a million places he could hide, just like the Mujahideen he and his men tried to find during their war. Diversionary tactics, terror, suicide attacks were the way the enemy achieved his aims. Leo says he saw Afghan fighters shot to ribbons, still clutching their weapons and firing until their last breath. Many of them, he says, used drugs before launching operations. But they were, he says, the most effective force he has ever seen, honed on 20 years of continual war. They were also well supplied with Stinger missiles provided by the Soviet Union's Cold War foe, the United States. Russia expected to stay a few months in Afghanistan. It ended up fighting for 10 years. It was a searing lesson, Leo says, that scarred Russia just as Vietnam tore at the soul of America. These fighters can bring any country, he says, even a superpower, be it Russia, the United States, or Europe, to the brink of catastrophe. Jill Doherty, CNN, Moscow.
And this is a war which will also be fought in parliament buildings, in embassies, and by hotline telephone as the United States seeks to build an anti-terror coalition. Let's hear about that diplomatic campaign now from CNN State Department correspondent Andrea Koppel. She joins us now live. Andrea?
Wolf, because this war will be one without boundaries, one that is fought literally around the world in countries wherever there are terrorists, it's going to require a very different kind of coalition, a much larger coalition than the one you reported on during the Gulf War. And that is why Secretary of State Powell today has the world on speed dial.
With the Bush administration's diplomatic campaign now in high gear, Secretary of State Colin Powell said the international coalition against terrorism is coming together.
Some, it is rhetorical in nature, and they really don't have much else to give us other than words of support and encouragement. Others, it is far more than that, to the point of, if you have to do something militarily, ask us if we can participate.
At the heart of this diplomatic puzzle is Afghanistan, where Osama bin Laden and his terrorist network have safe haven. And for that reason, administration officials say the U.S. is focusing on several key pieces: Pakistan, Central Asia, Russia, and the Arab world. Diplomatic sources tell CNN Pakistan's president sent a delegation to deliver a letter to the leader of Afghanistan's ruling Taliban militia Monday. The message? Hand over bin Laden or face U.S. military retaliation. In Central Asia, where members of bin Laden's network are known to operate, the U.S. is appealing to these governments to close their borders and round up the terrorists. Experts say the country of Uzbekistan could also help in a future U.S. military operation.
It has led the Central Asian activism on the issue of Afghanistan, and it has, in Tashkent, the best air base in the region.
That's among the reasons Powell's deputy, Richard Armitage, is traveling to Russia this week to seek Moscow's help in bringing Central Asia on board, as well as its advice from Moscow's 10-year war with Afghanistan. A pivotal piece of this puzzle is the Arab world. Countries like Saudi Arabia, a source not only of money to bin Laden's network, but also home to some of Islam's holiest sites. The U.S. needs the Saudis and others to explain that this is not a U.S. war against Islam.
The administration will get a chance to reinforce that message, Wolf, later this week when the Saudi foreign minister comes to Washington. The U.S. looking to Saudi Arabia and the Arab world to emphasize throughout the Muslim world that last week's attacks were un-Islamic and the terrorists who committed them were un-Islamic as well, traitors to Islam. Wolf?
Andrea Koppel of the State Department, thank you very much. And up next, the U.S. war machine is gearing up for possible action. But how effective can traditional warfare be in Afghanistan? We'll ask a retired Air Force Major General when we come back.
AOL is very easy to use.
I was real scared to use any computer at all, but it really was easy.
If I could do it, how hard can it be? You've got mail.
My mother uses email to keep in touch with the grandkids.
Instant messages are great.
It's one big community.
I can get information instantaneously.
I like to see what the news is. I do check the weather a lot.
I manage my portfolio on AOL.
I plan my summer vacation on AOL.
I get 24-hour customer service, and it's free.
America Online. It's easy and it's fast. So easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE.
There's some big news from Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury dealerships. Saturday service hours. Now it's even easier to get the service you need and the convenience you want. Come in for great deals on batteries, shocks, tires, and more. And factory-trained technicians who know your vehicle best. So for the right people, the right parts, and always the right prices, how does Saturday work for you? Quality care on Saturday at participating Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury dealerships.
These featherette accessory orders are pouring in, so she needs a reliable server now. That I can get. Why people wear this stuff? Who knows?
You can accomplish anything, even ultra-high server availability. Fujitsu, the possibilities are infinite.
As the story continues to unfold, join Aaron Brown tonight at 10 for the latest developments and in-depth coverage of America's new war. A CNN special report with Aaron Brown, tonight at 10 Eastern on CNN.
If you are seeking someone you believe to be missing from the attack on the World Trade Center or the Pentagon, log on to cnn.com/missing to submit a photograph and description. Please include your contact information.
In the next 15 minutes, a crisis will begin, another will end. Where do you stand? Get the news you need. CNN Headline News. Real news, real fast.
Welcome back. Joining us now, someone who knows quite well the landscape and obstacles the military will face in any conflict in Afghanistan. Retired U.S. Air Force Major General George Harrison. General Harrison, thanks for joining us. And tell our viewers why you believe this war will be very different than the Gulf War, the Vietnam War, or any other war the U.S. has ever fought.
Well, Wolf, I believe that this conflict requires a more complex interaction of all the elements of national military power or national power. This will have to be a military effort that's well coordinated with diplomatic and economic activity, and I think we've seen that just in the report that you've put on tonight. The President has clearly stated that we won't do anything until we're ready. He stated that we're going to have very tight operational security, and I think all those things add to the complications of what's going on. The geography, assuming Afghanistan should be a target, the geography of the situation is going to make it more difficult, but I think that as an element of a coordinated national strategy, our military power can and will be very effective.
General Harrison, you're standing in front of a map, and it's obvious to everyone that Afghanistan is landlocked, no ports, no water. What does that mean, that air power alone is going to be able to get the job done?
Well, of course, none of us ever have believed that air power alone does the job in any circumstance, but air power will be a key element. It's just going to be a very complicated element. We'll need very much to figure out how to do in-flight refueling. We'll need to figure out how to base our forces. We'll need to figure out what kinds of long-range operations we can conduct and what kind of op-tempo we can sustain. As you know, from the nearest water to Kabul, for instance, the distance is about 700 or 800 nautical miles. That's beyond the unrefueled round-trip range of most of our tactical aircraft, and certainly it would be a long trip for any of the strategic aircraft. So it'll be a complicated operation, and I think that's one of the reasons why our planners are being very closed-mouthed about exactly the kinds of options that they're going to employ.
General, as you know, any military option will require good intelligence. Satellites may or may not be very effective in the kind of operation the U.S. is considering if, in fact, it goes up against Osama bin Laden and the Taliban in Afghanistan. Is that right?
Well, I think that We all understand very clearly that the intelligence operation, or the intelligence portion of this operation, by the way, operation is probably the wrong term, campaign is probably a more correct term, but the intelligence portion of this campaign is going to be very difficult, very involved, and very time-consuming. We can probably gain some quick intelligence and have gained quite a bit over the last few days, but I believe that the requirement to get on the ground, to get human intelligence, is going to be pervasive, and it's going to be very, very difficult.
Retired U.S. Major General George Harrison, thank you very much for joining us.
A pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And up next, the mood of the military. We'll talk to some of the soldiers who could wind up on the front lines of America's new war. Stay with us.
This is a complete broadband solution with a nitro-powered on switch. This is igniting your mission-critical applications on the fattest optical IP pipe on the planet. This is your business, screaming 1,000 times faster than yesterday. This is moving beyond connected. This is riding the light. This is the technology that makes it happen. Quest. Ride the light.
The search for life and loved ones continues as President Bush promises victory against terrorism. For complete coverage, stay with CNN.
Are you one of the millions of American males who would like increased sexual energy? If you've been considering Viagra as a solution, consider something different. All-natural Enerx. Clinical studies show various ingredients of Enerx enhance sexual energy, increasing desire, performance, and satisfaction. Enerx is all natural with no side effects. With Enerx, you'll feel the increased energy within minutes and with no chemicals. We're so sure you and your mate will be completely satisfied. We'll offer you a 30-day, no questions asked, full refund. Enerx stimulates sexual energy by expanding the blood vessels, causing increased blood flow to specific areas of the body. Unleash the power of Enerx now.
Call 1-800-367-3614 toll-free, and it will be delivered discreetly to your home. Get results using the safe, all-natural alternative, Enerx.
This is CNN.